Welcome to the installation video for EJ Fitment SteamSpeed turbochargers. Today we'll be installing a SteamSpeed STX 67R-10 twin scroll on our version 8 EJ207. This process can be applied to any EJ Fitment vehicle or to these listed part numbers. Notice our vehicle is far from stock and what you see in the video may not match your vehicle. However, the key points of the process are the same. We begin by gaining clear access to the turbo. We remove the air filter and MAF housing and charge pipe at the turbo. If you have a top-mount intercooler, remove that from the throttle body and compressor outlet. The silicone or plastic hoses may be stuck over time. Use brake clean to break the adhesion and carefully work the sealing edge with a hose pick. Take caution not to puncture or tear the hoses, as this will lead to a boost leak later. Next, remove any heat shielding you may have installed, whether that's a turbo blanket such as the SteamSpeed titanium or carbon fiber turbo blankets, or bolted on stamped steel heat shields. Next, use a rust penetrator such as WD-40 or BB Blaster to soak the turbine housing bolts on the up pipe and the down pipe flanges. Allow them to soak for at least 15 to 20 minutes. While the bolts soak, place a collection pan underneath the vehicle directly below the turbocharger. Then remove the coolant and oil lines connected to the CHRA portion of the turbo. I suggest using hose clamps to minimize the amount of spilled coolant and coolant unnecessarily draining from the engine. I also cap the coolant lines on the turbo, also to minimize the mess. Next, you can begin to loosen and remove all the up and down pipe flange bolts and nuts. Caution: these bolts can break if too rusted together. If this happens, you will need to replace them. Disconnect the oil feed line from the CHRA if you haven't already done this. You can also disconnect the vacuum lines that are connected to the turbo compressor outlet and the wastegate actuator diaphragm. When the flange bolts and nuts are removed, disconnect the downpipe from its solid mounts on the side of the transmission. Unplug any oxygen sensors and remove the downpipe from the vehicle. Once the downpipe is clear, loosen the compressor inlet pipe and maneuver it towards the front of the vehicle underneath the intake manifold until it is clear of the compressor housing. Then you should be able to lift the turbo off the uppipe flange and oil drain tube. Take caution with the oil drain tube as the hoses can stick and tension clamps can lose their tension over time and fall off while removing. The open oil drain will be exposed and can risk material falling into it. Place the new and old turbochargers on a workbench and note any comparable differences that may cause fitment issues or parts that may need to be transferred, such as the coolant lines and oil drain tube. Next, you will see there are 3 studs provided with your new turbo. Place these in corresponding locations compared with your previously removed turbo and tighten these studs with a 7mm open-end wrench. Apply thread sealant or thread tape to the oil feed line fitting on the back side of the cylinder head. This will be a hard line on AVCS-equipped engines. Then, install the oil feed line. Prep the up and down pipe flanges for new gaskets. Remove any surface rust or grease and oil with a fine-grained abrasive pad and some light brake clean. Be careful not to get brake clean down the up pipe or down pipe as they can damage catalytic converters. Then place your new gasket on the up pipe flange. Place your new SteamSpeed STX turbocharger onto your up pipe flange. Remain aware of the oil drain tube alignment. If the drain tube is new, it may be more difficult to slide onto the metal portion connected to the CHRA. You can apply a thin film of engine oil to the rubber drain tube to ease its fitment onto the metal portion. Then place the tension clamps back into place. Carefully guide your turbo inlet pipe onto the inlet of the compressor housing. On larger turbos, this may be more difficult as the compressor inlet diameter may be larger than the diameter of your inlet pipe. Tighten the clamp, securing the inlet to the compressor housing. Begin to reinstall all the nuts and bolts securing the turbo to the up pipe. Be sure all nuts and bolts are in place before tightening all the way. Place your downpipe gasket on the outlet flange and studs of the turbine housing. Then guide the downpipe into place. Install the downpipe flange nuts and bolts. Again, do not tighten all the way until all the bolts are in place. Once all the bolts are in place, torque all nuts and bolts on the up pipe and downpipe flanges to 26 foot-pounds. Next, apply thread sealant or thread tape to the oil feed line fitting on the top side of the CHRA. Reconnect the coolant hoses and vacuum lines. Carefully check each step on the installation to be sure nothing was missed or any hoses moved out of place. Reinstall the charge pipe and air filter housing. The most important step is priming the oiling system. If this step is not performed, irreparable damage will be done to the CHRA bearings. Disable the ignition system by removing the crank sensor signal. Crank sensor is located directly beneath the alternator. Crank the vehicle over for a minimum of 30 seconds. Once that is completed, reconnect the crank sensor and start the car. Allow the vehicle to idle for 15 to 20 minutes and reach operating temperature slowly. Do not rev the engine. Inspect your work for coolant or oil leaks at any of the fittings and hoses. Be observant for a hiss noise of possible vacuum or intake leaks. Once the vehicle has thoroughly been checked, let it cool and reinstall your heat shield. It is now imperative that your vehicle is tuned by a trusted tuner using a chassis dynamometer.